A handful of members of Congress on both sides of the aisle are saying the truth is out there and the American people have a right to know about it. They're demanding more transparency surrounding UFOs, or as the government calls them, UAPs, which stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. The lawmakers say the classified information that they have seen but cannot talk about would not put national security at risk.
It has become very clear and evident that there is an apparent an orchestrated attempt to deny us this access, and it appears that that is coming from the intelligence community. We have a rampant overclassification problem. We need the UAP Disclosure Act.
Every time we pulled a thread and we stumbled on something, it seemed that we would get stonewalled.
Former defense officials testified in a hearing earlier this year that the government has been too secretive about those sightings.
Either aliens are real, or all our minds are being fucked with. Because if aliens are not real, if this information is not being kept from us by intelligence organizations and, of course, multi-billion-dollar corporations, then what it all amounts to is a dog and pony show to fuck with our heads and distract us. That seems like a form of psychological warfare, and it seems to me that that would, stipulate a class action lawsuit on behalf of all of the American people. Because, we already realize that the news is, well, I don't want to say fake because somebody ruined that slogan. But when you can watch broadcasts from multiple news organizations, and not just, CBS Atlantis, CBS Los Angeles, but when CBS, NBC, and Fox, and all of these different local news organizations are all reading off of the same script, what the fuck's going on here? But of course, we've all heard that before. I mean, we haven't acted on it, but we've heard it before. That's why the most important thing to focus on right now is, either aliens are totally real, and I'm in the totally real camp because there's a shit ton of proof, and if you've had any kind of weird experiences over the last couple of years, if your life's gone completely topsy-turvy, and the only thing that has actually kept you alive has been weird spiritual or otherworldly type of shit, then, if you know kind of deal. But that's not what's really important. Again, what we need to focus on, what we need to keep reminding ourselves of, either all of this crazy but wonderful imaginative shit is real, because it means, hey, just like Picard said in Star Trek, things are only impossible until they're not, and we've just learned that impossible things are an absolute reality. Woohoo! Regardless, though, what I think is the most important thing right now is that we should all just be focusing on the one subject of, either our minds are being fucked with, or they are keeping complete, life-shattering, world-altering information from us that, could bring about world peace, that could very well make all of our lives better. Why wouldn't they want that to happen? Well, don't you ever sit down and ask yourself why it seems like the world is run by warmongers? I mean, the United Nations has armed both sides of multiple conflicts over the years. Isn't that a little strange? I mean, isn't the United Nations supposed to, work for world peace or some shit like that? At least that's what they sold us. That's what they tell us. But it doesn't seem like that's the fucking case now, does it? It's also very strange to me that no matter if it's Biden or Trump, they're all just stirring the fucking pot. They're all dividing and conquering and pitting us against one another. But that begs to life a few other questions that we could sit down and ask ourselves. I don't think the common person is stupid. I don't think that the world is full of morons. So that makes me wonder what the shit is actually going on that they could control so many people and have us work against our own self-interests. That's really fucking peculiar. I mean, I would believe that the only way to make some shit like that pop off and happen would be if you had either a technological or a supernatural kind of force that you're using to control people. Could it be fear? I mean, it seems like there are only two forces at work in the world, love and fear. And I mean, you could try to say hate and anger, but hate and anger are just a byproduct of fear. I mean, you're sitting there watching the new Star Wars movie, and you want it to be really good, but then it just doesn't deliver for you, and you get afraid. And why are you afraid? Because you're like, oh my God, this is the last time we're ever going to see Carrie Fisher and all of them together. And, you just start feeding fear. It's a geeky allegory, but it basically fits. I mean, all of these people who are hating on shit are just hating on it because they're afraid that they've wasted their time. They're all thinking that life is so fast and that, you have to make every moment last, that they're literally ruining their own lives. It's like getting in a line at a theme park and realizing that the attraction you just waited 2 hours for was kind of subpar. It's like going to Universal Studios and riding the Fast and Furious attraction. It's not the best ride in the fucking world, no. But you rode it. That's over with. You could sit there like going, oh my God, that ride sucked, I waited 2 hours. Or you could just go, I've ridden worse. Just like you could say after you walk out of the bedroom. And, you could go on with your life and enjoy yourself. But that's not what they want us to do. At every turn in the world that we live in, there's just something that wants to make you waste your day. And the day's only wasted if your energy turns negative. Why am I going on and on about this? Because we're all having these negative energy-based attacks. You can call them panic attacks, you can call them anxiety attacks. What it basically boils down to, though, is that fear's literally coming to get us. And, we think drugs, alcohol, or therapy, or breathing, or you name it, we think that, helps. But nobody ever really just sits down with fear and is like, all right, motherfucker, what you got? What have you got for me? Because that's a terrifying experience to go through. But if you've taken mushrooms, it kind of forces your ass into the situation. Once you've actually sat down and experienced fear over and over again in such extreme panic attacks, you start getting curious about it. You're like, okay, so what if I just, stop responding to it? And then all of a sudden, it's like it wants to come after you harder. Hang on, time out. What happens the more you learn about your panic and you're just like, okay, I experience a panic attack in this situation, so I'm going to avoid this situation. If panic attacks actually work the way the doctors and people want us to believe, then you could actually avoid panic attacks. But as soon as you start avoiding panic attacks, a lot of us have learned, holy shit, that motherfucker starts chasing you down like Michael Myers. What's going on here? That seems to be more a product of evil or some supernatural force than just, you went through some tough shit, you developed PTSD, and certain triggers bring on anxiety attacks. I mean, that would be normal, right? But a lot of us, even those of us who've never been through anything traumatic in our entire lives, can be sitting in bed trying to sleep, and all of a sudden you realize, holy shit, I'm having a panic attack. And then it just gets worse from there. I mean, you try everything. You try pills, you try everything, but it just never really works. I mean, it might dull it, it might mute it, but at the end of the day, you still have this fucking monkey chasing you down and crawling up your back. And this is why the government can sit there and maintain control on a certain level, because a lot of us believe the authority figures around us, which, when it goes to show that they're lying to us about world-altering, life-shattering information, or just fucking with our heads, it would stand to reason that trusting them isn't a good idea, because whatever these people have in mind clearly isn't fucking good. Look around you. The people who do the work, the people who follow all the rules and do as they're told, still suffer. They're still living a struggle-filled existence. That's bullshit. You play by the rules and your life's still dog shit? What the fuck is that about? Most importantly, at a certain point, you can sit there and actually realize, holy fucking shit, these people aren't just greedy. This is something worse. This is some form of sadism. Because if these people were just greedy, then they would want America to be the most prosperous nation possible. They would want to make sure that everybody's feeling comfortable so that they can work at their best, so that they can make sure that whatever little cog they got spinning, they can spin at their absolute finest. But that's not how America works. It's the whole dog-eat-dog mentality, life isn't fair bullshit. Why? Everything in this fucking world is just an imagined creation. We imagined Congress. We imagined a nation. It takes all of us, committing to that imagined creation to make it a fucking reality. I mean, Steve Jobs could sit there dreaming up all that shit, but he needed the smart people around him to actually make it a fucking reality. And that's what goes on. You have these people who dream up wonderful things, and then they need other people to fulfill and make those wonderful things a reality. And yet all of the people who make everything a reality are the ones who end up getting fucked in the ass, just like Carlin fucking warned us about. But, when you listen to a lot of the stuff that Carlin warned us about, it's like, yeah, remember that Rockefeller, the creation of the Board of Education, said that he was not in business of making a nation of thinkers, he was in business of making a nation of workers. So that falls back on the old Carlin joke of, they want people just smart enough to run the machines and dumb enough to not know how badly they're being fucked in the ass. But how can you have a nation that literally exists like that for years? I mean, we have the internet. We're in the age of information. And yet they can still pull the wool over our eyes? People are still going to waste their time protesting over Israel or Palestine instead of, fixing our issues here so that then we can be the role model to the world. And when it comes right down to it, siding with either Israel or Palestine is fucking stupid. Because what we should be siding with is peace on both sides. Because you have the people over here going, yeah, 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 Israel, and yeah, 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 Palestine. And then underneath all of those people, the hundreds who can shout louder than the thousands, well, those thousands are the ones who are suffering and being blown to bloody bits on each side. I also find it very interesting that, Israel shows exactly how wonderful of a country they are, that when people on their side of the border start protesting on behalf of Palestine, they get their police to just beat the shit out of them. Doesn't that make Israel look like a bunch of awesome, cool fuckers? And then, you got these other people on the other side of the aisle who decide that killing women and children is a good thing. Oh, but wait, Israel does that too. They're both guilty of exactly the same shit. But then you also tend to find out that their president over in Israel knew about the attack a fucking year ago. Yeah, that just came out in the New York Times. Oh wait, hang on. America knew about the 9/11 terrorist attacks before they happened, and yet they allowed them to happen to justify the Iraq War. I mean, even if we don't sit down and go, it was an inside job, somebody planted bombs. Let's just scrape all that shit to the side. We know that they knew. But then there's also, the whole problematic issue of Building 7 not being hit by shit and then just, collapsing in on of itself because it got really depressed seeing Towers 1 and 2, and it decided, fuck it, I'm going too. But then you also have a news reporter who's going, Tower 7 has collapsed, and we can clearly see over the bitch's shoulder that it hasn't collapsed. And every time I watch that news report, all I can think is, there's somebody, somewhere, like Danny McBride in Tropic Thunder going, shit, we were supposed to blow it! Now, hit the detonators! And then they did, and it just collapsed right after she says it had already collapsed. Like, you cannot make that shit up. It's fucking real. You can Google and find the video. I mean, they try to take it down, but it stays up there. People keep reposting it. And then you also have the fact that, the United States knew about the Pearl Harbor terrorist attacks. And that actually, if you read into history, that they don't teach you in school, those attacks were spurred on. They tried to act like, oh, it was this unjustified, we didn't do shit. Yeah, we cut off their oil. We cut off the oil to Japan due to their war with the Chinese. And then, they also want to make the Japanese at the time look totally fucking brutal and like it was unnecessary. And yet, China had invaded Japan like years and years before, maybe even hundreds of years before. I'm a little shady on the history of that. But that conflict had been going on for a really long time. And, what was our solution? Let's just nuke a city. Don't you think we should target, a military installation? No, fuck that. Let's kill women and kids and civilians to show them we ain't fucking playing. Does that not sound familiar? Oh, wait, hang on. Did you know that Israel was formed by genocide? Like, I'm not talking about back in the day. Like, originally, Israel was full of the Jews. All right, that was their place. But then they left. They went to a bunch of other countries, and things did not go so well for them historically. We know that as a fact. So they wanted to go back home, but instead of going back home and sharing the home with the people who have then, made it a home, they went around bombing mosques and committing acts of terror, and then they ran to the United Nations, and they're like, yo, is this shit cool? And the United Nations was like, abso-motherfucking-lutely, because we did something very similar when we formed America. I mean, there were these people who were already calling the land a home, but we were just like, fuck it, we can do whatever we want to these people. They're savages. No one's gonna give a shit. Did you realize that when we fucked up the people's water at Standing Rock, that thing that some people have tend to forget about, Obama was the president then, not Trump, the one who was all about helping people. You do realize all of those initial protests over police brutality and violence was when Obama was still in office. I mean, yeah, it carried out under Trump, but it started with Obama being in office. Why are you talking about that? Obama's a good guy. So then why, when the recession hit, and part of the recession was that a bunch of these banks stole their clients' money to fund their own shit, and what then happened? Did they get punished? No. They got payoffs and handouts by the government so they could keep running because they were too big to fail. And what happened to all the clients' money that was just stolen? You remember that scene from fucking South Park where they're like, and we have and it's gone. That's exactly what happened to people. Their entire lives disappeared before their eyes, all because crooked businessmen can break the rules, and that's totally fine. Meanwhile, you run a red light and your life gets fucking destroyed by the justice system. These people destroy countless lives, leave people homeless. What did Obama do? Go fuck yourself. Go out in the cold. That's literally what happened. There was no system in place to help those people who literally got fucked in the ass by a big red, white, and blue dick. And yet we're seeing the consistent fallout of that now. Why do you think people are homeless right now? Why do you think there's such a homeless epidemic? It's all fallout. Everything's fucking connected. And yet there are so many people who are talking and thinking like this and sharing information like this. So what is happening out there, folks? Why is it that you only see mass protests when it benefits those in power? Did you ever think that maybe these mass protests you see are kind of like our version of the purge? That maybe, just maybe, the people that you're protesting against or for actually own these groups? And that the protests aren't really about solving anything or making any kind of political change, but it's just about letting you all vent your anger because we all know that there's something terribly wrong going on around us, but we don't know what the fuck to do about it. Maybe the thing to do about it is to focus on one specific cause. And that one specific cause is we cannot trust anyone in charge. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on, because what's truly going down is that the powerful want to hoard and keep all that power for themselves. And it would be nice to think that it's just because they think people need to be controlled because we're fucking stupid and they need to shepherd us. But as I said, we can't even think that these people are just greedy. Because if they were greedy, they'd run the ship better because they would want to, make a profit. It's kind of a logical formula. But instead, what you look around the world and see is nothing but constant misery and suffering. Why would that be? Because that's what they want. Why would they want that? Well, if there are actual supernatural forces at work or aliens at work, it's obvious that they're, in some ways, feeding off of this, but in other ways, just getting off on it. Food for thought.